has been a while since the last time I saw you all face to face. Have been traveling to Europe and back. So here we all are. It's quite the time to really embrace all the work that we have done throughout the year, and hopefully we end up the year on a very strong manner. That being said, quick intro about myself. I became CIO of my own family office that had been since 1903, as of 2009. Today, I am an IWA, which is an international wealth advisor. Most of our assets are housed and integrated vertically with Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and we happen to have our own private alternative investment portfolio, as you know, many of you. One of them being Soriano. So I'm going to take your attention for a second. Hope all you're all back. I'm looking at you, Todd, sitting in front of me right now. Zach, you're right here. Pay attention. Don't leave the room. So please let me have your attention for this video. Just a quick intro of our legacy.
We first take a step back and take a look into how Soriano Vittori's legacy began. Soriano Vittori is a brand filled with rich history and accomplishments. The company's legacy brand was started back in 1929 by the current founder, Marco A. Soriano's grandfather, Riccardo Soriano Schultz von Harnensdorf. Soriano Vittori Legacy was a well-known manufacturing company in Spain. The company was responsible for producing top-quality cars, motorcycles, and outboard engines. Soriano Vittori Legacy were true pioneers in the automotive, motorcycle, and boating industry. We take a look back into the accomplishments that Riccardo Soriano Schultz von Harnensdorf's company, Soriano Vittori Legacy, accomplished. Soriano Vittori Legacy will forever be remembered as a great company, pioneers and leaders in the industry. Soriano Vittori Legacy is embedded deep into Spanish history with its monumental accomplishments. Soon after the war, the company lay dormant for 100 years. Soon after 100 years, finally, Soriano Vittori was now reborn, back and better than ever. Continuing the legacy started by his grandfather, Marco A. Soriano, holds the torch up high and blazes a mighty trail into the new industry. Soriano Vittori's rebirth is the start of a legacy that people will talk about into the future. With the rebirth of the brand, Soriano Vittori aims to be the industry standard in luxury high-performance EV motorcycles. Let us dive deep into the life of Soriano Vittori Legacy's pioneer, Riccardo Soriano Schultz von Harnensdorf, the man with the vision to change the future. Riccardo Soriano was born in the year 1883 in Salamanca, Spain. He was born to a noble Spanish aristocratic family. Growing up, Riccardo had a lot of interest in mechanical engineering. When he reached college, he went to Belgium to pursue a degree in mechanical engineering. He then went on to pursue a career in a multitude of industries, which included automobile, aeronautics, winter sports industry, which included the invention of snowmobiles, motorcycling, cinematography, and the boating industry. His most notable contribution was his contribution to the automobile and motorcycle industry, where he pioneered what would now be a world-renowned company, Soriano Vittori Legacy. Riccardo Soriano was a pioneer in different industries. He was a great inventor, sportsman, and leader. He will always be remembered for his contributions in the different industries. He always had a vision to invent the next big thing. All his contributions can still be seen in some of the things we use today. Looking into the present, Soriano Vittori aims to be the leading manufacturer in the EV motorcycle industry, spearheaded by the founder himself, Marco A. Soriano. Bringing back the legacy asset Soriano Vittori started with an idea. When Mr. Soriano was on vacation with friends, Marco A. Soriano himself is a very accomplished man. He's had a lot of success with his family business in the financial industry. Mr. Soriano is a partner and chief financial officer of the Soriano Family Office Group. With his success in the financial industry, he's looking for more challenges and what better time than now to bring back a legacy asset started by his grandfather and rebirth it into a new brand with a focus on the EV industry. Rebirthing a company doesn't simply come into fruition in a matter of days. Instead, it takes a lot of hard work. Working behind Marco is a team of great people who are focused on creating the best EV motorcycle on the market. Soriano Vittori currently has 3 models in their lineup: the Jaguar V1 V1 the G1 V1S, and the G1 V1R. All models are currently limited up to 100 pieces. All three motorcycles are fully customizable to the spec that each owner wants. Each bike will be made fully bespoke to that specific owner, and no two bikes will be the same. Soriano Motori also revolutionized payment and buying options. We have created a website fully capable of designing specifications for each owner. We're the first brand in the EV motorcycle industry to accept cryptocurrency as a form of payment. We assure each customer of the highest quality and enjoyment when they receive their motorcycles.
This is the first time I see this video that was put by my team, so it's quite emotional a little bit to see the work that we've accomplished so far. So once again, I want to thank you, High Speed Alliance, for giving us the chance to rebirth such a legacy, and you being part of this, being part of our family. And that being said, what I'd like to do next is give you a quick macroeconomic outlook from a banking perspective, and especially right now during the times that we're going through. There's a lot of things that we should be aware of that will impact both our foreign policies, our economic outlook, and as well as anything that has to deal with public markets in the US. Under a divided government, the impact of policy on the output gap, inflation, and Fed policy would likely be much smaller, regardless of who wins the presidential election, which is a big question in the back of our minds. It is difficult to make specific projections. However, we do know that the policy outcomes are less certain. That said, our baseline economic assumption already include an expectation of modest fiscal stimulus legislation in early 2021. Assuming that a divided government election outcome results in few other major policy changes, such an outcome would likely result in little change to our economic or Fed forecasts. Pay close attention to what's happening between the US-China divide, which has been going on for quite some time now due to the trade deficit, our war in our currencies with them. But there is an underlying sector, treaties of economic impact. Foreign policy and geopolitics taking center stage in Japan. Their foreign policy and national security are actually increasingly important themes in their politics, given the intensification of US-China tensions. Against this backdrop, US-China, the sudden departure of the Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who raised Japan's presence in international politics through his Indo-Pacific strategy, it increased the stakes of the upcoming leadership transition. The Prime Minister without global perspective and leadership could undermine Japan's presence and expose Japan's companies to increased geopolitical risks. What does that mean to us? Well, if you're looking at this graph, Japan is arguably facing its biggest problems in the post-war era because of the division between the US and China relationships in commerce. Well, Japan relies on its alliance with the US for its national security, with China seeming to pose the biggest geopolitical threat. China is also Japan's largest trade partner. The US-China divide will likely shift Japan's national strategy from passive reliance on the Japan-USA alliance to a proactive search for cooperation across Indo-Pacific region, along with the US and strengthening its own military capability to balance the power against China. In another word, Japan's way out equals Indo-Pacific strategy, which is something that we in the US have been involved quite for some time. A lot of the goods that we get here, that we import to the US, come from this region. 2/3 of the population in the world resides in that hemisphere, in that side of the world. So we do need to pay close attention to this. In this next chart, market implications. We believe Japan's strategic focus on the Indo-Pacific region and its defense capability amid the US-China divide has 3 key market implications. Number one, we have to fill the gap created by the US-China divide. Who's going to do it, or who's closer to doing it? Number two, Indo-Pacific opportunities. Japan's strategic focus in the Indo-Pacific region can improve market access for Japanese companies in the region, with India gaining particular importance for Japan and also for the US. The long-term trend of Japan's supply chain shift from Asian, the association of Southeast Asian nations, and India will likely be bolstered by the US-China divide and the pandemic. Number three, a defense upgrade. They do need a stronger military industry, which will likely stimulate demand in related industries and companies over the long term all over the world. In this chart, you can understand the alignment with the US strategy. For Japan's diplomacy, alignment with the US is vital because of its reliance on the bilateral military alliance. The Trump administration's withdrawal from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, also known as the TPP, was seen as a blow to Japan's strategy, as the TPP was intended to serve as an institutional framework to counter China's growing influence in the region. Notably, the Belt and the Road Initiative, which was one of the presentations that I did, I think, almost close to a year ago to you guys. However, the Trump administration has also put significant emphasis on the stability in the Indo-Pacific region. If you recall, in November of 2017, President Trump outlined his vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific in which all countries prosper side by side as sovereign, independent states, and made U.S. engagement in the Indo-Pacific region a top priority in his administration. And this is just not going to change. And you're going to see that the second term for whatever administration comes on board will be extremely important to be involved in. We'll hear a lot about this topic. Quick economic look at what's happening in the U.S. We are aware that during the period of February, April, we lost about 22 jobs after having probably one of the best unemployment rates in the U.S. history. The jobs since then have been regained at a 50%. Both of these graphs shows you each one of the sectors within the U.S. economy and in how fast we have recovered. Clearly 2021 is expected to be the year that we'll go back to stabilizing our economy and so on. But this also depends on foreign policy and our own economic monetary policies. Sorry, going back, just a quick note. The 2020 election, and I know a lot of you guys have come to me and asked, what is it, what do you think, who's going to win? Well, the backdrop for the 2020 election has shifted dramatically, and as the next administration's policies will shape the economic recovery and build a foundation for the next expansion. So either way, that's going to be their priority, their top priority. And right here, we're looking at equities in the U.S. from 1988 up to 2021. These are forecast projections, estimates on how well earnings recessions have, in comparison, being a positive trend to maximize investors' returns. So our president is likely to pursue an infrastructure package in a second term, and is probably prepared to recommend legislation amounting up to $2 trillion of infrastructure spending. We have seen this during the presidential debates and clearly way before that during his administration, showing what infrastructural plans have been put in place. Higher taxes are critical to pay for the more permanent measures required to make our economy, cities, and people more resilient to adverse shocks, but I don't believe these narrowly targeted taxes will hurt the economy, especially when we net out the benefits from what they're paying for. And I think it's part of the reason you're all talking about taxes most of this event. In this specific is graph, you're looking at the fixed income, which is the other pillar of our capital markets. Keep in mind, during the second term, the most economically important action President Trump would take would be to maintain his commitment to limit new regulations, which would further strengthen the economic climate for entrepreneurs and small businesses. Here are some of the topics of what we have been discussing during these presidential debates, this campaign, and topics that have become extremely of importance to our society, the way we are behaving with each other and the way information is being shared and learned. Unfortunately, the issue never made progress during the president's first term because other policy initiatives like tax cuts took priority on a limited legislative calendar, and the president never succeeded in getting Congress to pay attention to it. But given the tremendous amount of work already done on the issue at the White House, cabinet, and regulatory agencies, the president is very likely to pursue an infrastructure package once again, and is probably prepared to recommend legislation amounting up to this $2 trillion that I mentioned of infrastructure spending. Take a look at this list, ask these questions to yourself, how important these things are, and this is basically what is shaping our way of looking at the economy, looking at our societies, looking at the way our companies are behaving in the US and elsewhere, because we are global as we speak. That being said, I'd love to open up the floor for any questions that I can clarify some of these items. And if you're too shy for that, then by all means, come to me to the table, because I am here physically and I'll be happy to sketch it out for you all. Thank you.